So I got one of these Coleman Fleetwood tent trailers. This one's the Yukon. Just kind of funny because I think of Yukon, I think of Alaska, right? You think of the frozen tundra, the Great White North. I got palm trees. It's like California or something. Anyway, basically when I go to put this behind the shop, it plows the dirt with the receiver. I mean, it's so low to the ground. You may say, that doesn't look too low to the ground to me. That's because it's on these jack stands. What I'm going to do, I want to keep the same tire size. What size is it? It's 175, 80, 13. But anyway, they're low range C. The reason why I want to keep the same tire size is it's got this handy dandy spare tire cover so you don't have tire rot. But the problem is it is just so low. With it jacked up, this is about what the new height will be. Put out the jacks, I can deploy them. And, you know, I put 2x4s under them anyway. But I'll still be able to use my jacks, which is important. I want that to work. I could use a little lube. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I looked underneath and I'm like, man, how am I going to lift this thing? And I discovered that it is spring under. So you can see that the axle rides over the spring. I'm going to do a spring over on it, and that'll make up, you see how much gap this is? It's about 2 or 3 inches. And that's about what I'll get out of here. You know, I'm 2 or 3 inches off the ground. And then if I need to, I'll do a shackle kit on the, either here or back there, or do different mounts. Like I'll cut this mount off and that mount. There we go, I'm showing it. I'll cut this mount off and do one that's further down. But I'm going to do the spring over, and basically put the axle under the spring and have the spring go over the axle. I'm going to spring over first, and then go from there. So you can see I've got everything soaking in PB Blaster, penetrating oil. I'm going to let that soak overnight because it's late. I just put the motor in my Toyota Paseo I've got. I'm going to get it listed for sale tomorrow. And things should be alright. I got some new wheels and tires. When I bought this thing, the tires on this thing were horrible. The axle, I think was supposed to be a spring over, because when you look at the tires, you can see the inside of the tires pretty bald. Bald as I am, actually. So I got these new wheels and tires, and they got all that fresh meat on them. I was going to go with like passenger truck tires and do load range C on the R15. And I thought, you know, it would have to be all big and jacked up and big mud tires or some stupid thing on it. And then I thought, nah, then I can't do my spare tire thing. It's a really cool idea, but I don't think I'm going to go that route. But it's been quite the project. Still got to fix this cover, it's cracked. I welded the handle back on. The handle was messed up, and I put some grease in it before I welded it. So it was really stinky, but it should do a pretty good job. I got the furnace fixed. My neighbor actually, look at the size of this thing. This thing is a beast. It's got an awning on it and a box on the front. It folds out huge. This side's a king size bed, so that's kind of fun. It's got a water heater in the shower and all that stuff that didn't work, and so I've got all that fixed. Alright, so here's my findings on my little tent trailer. I went to pull the axle out to do the spring over, and while I had it out, I got looking down the shaft of it. You know, was it sitting on these jack stands, and I noticed that it's got a bend in it, and it's not bent up and over like an arc, like a semi-trailer would have to accommodate for flex of weight. But it looked like it was arcing to the back. Like if you look at it from, say you're looking at it from above and you've got your tires here. This is real abbreviated so it stays in frame. But instead of having an arc like this and having the outside of the tires bow and then the weight causing it to even out, what I had was, I had like the opposite. My tires were like this. Of course not this extreme. But basically this part of the tire was wearing out and was bald and cupped and nasty. And the axle looked straight. It's really weird. But when you look at it, this is like from behind. now for the above view. If you look at it from above, you've got these, and the axle, say this is the front of the trailer, this is the trailer hitch up here, and this is the rest of it. The axle was actually bent like this, and it was actually bent up a little bit. So I'm imagining a big fat rock hit the axle and bent it like that. So what I'm going to do is put in a new axle. I went to shop it out, and these hubs, I can get an axle shaft like that for 75 bucks, and I can throw my brakes back on it and be fine and great. But I want a heavier duty axle. I want to take this thing off road, and I want to break a rock with it. I don't want it to bend. So basically I got the whole new hubs and everything. I got new wheels and tires because the old ones, see, here's how the tire tread was wearing. You can see that it's just funky looking, you know, it's sticking up here, and then it's like somebody took a knife and just cut things out of it, you know, like when your shocks go bad or your struts go bad. It was only wearing on the inside because they were, you know, the camber was bad. So anyway, I got this new setup. I'm going to throw it under there and see how it works, and then I got to weld on the little brackets. Now, like I say, these are supposed to be bent, but they're supposed to be bent in such fashion, you know, that it accommodates for the weight. This is a 3,500 pound axle. It's only 2,200 pound axle. And I think the trailer weighs somewhere around 3,000 pounds or something like that. So I want the heavier duty axle. It's a little bit longer, so I'm going to test fit it, see how it goes. Now, as I said before, your axle's supposed to be bent and it's supposed to bow up. So how do you know how it's bent? Well, when you put it in your hubs and put it on the ground, you can turn it. You get down on it like this. You can turn it and it'll swing so that the high point goes down. So I would let it go down. Then you look at your little bracket for your brakes, brake backing, where it bolts on, and make sure that those are parallel to the ground. I'm going to mark bottom on the bottom here. And if I know that that's going to be the bottom of the axle and I'm doing it spring over, then my bracket for it is going to have to go on that other side. So it'll be like that. So here's the dry fit. No seals, no grease, no nothing, just assembling dry, throwing it on jack stands. That's the way it's at. And this 72-inch axle's a lot wider. Well, it's a couple inches, 3 inches wider than the other axle. I'm not just talking about the width of the tube, I'm talking about the length of it. It's longer. And so you look at the tires, and that's pretty well in the center on both sides. I was worried it's going to stick out and be all kinds of problems, but it still seems kind of skinny and, you know, like dorky small. See, on this side we got quite a bit of length on both sides, so it's going to fit no problem. I'm going to start welding this thing up and make it happen. I'm debating if I should have done brakes on it. You only need brakes if you're going to be pulling with something little and wimpy. But I'm pulling with a big turbo diesel truck, so it's not a big deal. I've got, this is my axle shaft, and these are the brake backing plates. I gotta measure in how far in to do it. I measured the springs where they hang down where the studs are, and that's 57.25 inches. And between these is 65.25 inches. The reason why I chose those, I'm going to measure in from those into where I need to have the inside of the hole. So the math on that is 65.25 minus 57.25, that's 8 inches. Divide that by 2 and it's 4 inches. Is this easy math or what? I picked the right spots to measure from. So I've got the top of the axle, you know where the high point is there. I've got these, and these are level. So if the ends of these are level, then I just need to put a level on this and then measure 4 inches between this point here, the inside opening of the hole, and the backing plate here. So measure 4 inches, weld that, and I'll just be in good shape. Got her done. Got both my brackets on. They're welded in place. And now I'm wondering, I'm really debating whether or not to do these things. I've got these slider brackets that you're supposed to just weld to the bottom of the frame of your trailer. But look how heavy duty this is. Another thing is the guy's like, Well, you got to do spacers and cut the whole thing off and on about how it's so technical and they've got to be perfectly level. But look at this. This is clear down here, and this one does it right on the frame. So it's like way low in the back. He's like, your spring has to be level and at the lowest point and all this stuff. Well, dude, if I were to do it level, I'd have a block clear down here. So I'm thinking I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Final product, my spring over conversion. You see I've got the axle all painted black and this U-bolts and everything. Makes them a little hard to see, but you get the idea. And back here what I wound up doing is I wound up doing it open at the bottom and then the slide for the slider spring at the top. I left the bolt in there just to help to keep the strength and the thing together so it didn't bend or flex. But it's looking pretty good. That thing's pretty high off the ground. I don't know how it's going to turn out once I put wheels on it. We'll find out here in a minute. But I've got the arc. You can't really see unless you get on the end of it. You get down like this, you can see how that arcs up and over. You kind of see it. So anyway, I decided not to go with brakes on this one. The brake system for this trailer is just the runaway brake system. So it doesn't even have trailer brakes normally. You could wire it so that it did, but I'm just like, you know what, this thing doesn't weigh anything. These tent trailers are pretty light. My truck has no idea it's even back there. And I was like, well, maybe it's because it had trailer brakes. Well, no, it didn't. So there's just another view of the same thing. Where it used to slide clear over here. And the guy at the trailer shop, he was saying to do a lift kit, you had to space the whole thing down, cut this off, do a spacer and do that, and whatever you do on one side, you do on the other, so that this is all perfect and straight and low. But this one was at frame level at the back and way jacked up in the front. I'm thinking that maybe it was supposed to be at this hole and somebody drilled a lower hole because it was so low. This trailer was a low riding sucker. So anyway, it's up off the ground now, hopefully not too much, but I don't know, I think it'd be nice to get it off the ground as much as you can just so I can go camping in the fun places. The idea is if I'm on the highway at a little RV shop, what the heck fun is that? I could be in a motel, and a motel's probably cheaper than a camper. You know, you add up what you spend on one of these suckers. It's expensive, but it's to put yourself in comfort in a cool place. And a lot of the cool places I want to go, you got to have four-wheel drive to get to. So that's why I'm lifting this sucker. And then the new axle, as I said, that's just a coincidence because the old one was a piece of crap. But this one is so heavy duty, you know, that'll smack a rock and take it a lot better, I think. It'll support the weight of the trailer on the rock without bending better than that little skinny sucker did. Got my axle in there. And the axle, you can actually see it now. It's not behind the water tank, clear up underneath of there. And clears the tires nice. You know, they're still recessed, they don't rub. Everything worked out perfect that way. Thing's tall now. It's like, what do you say, Riley? That's about 5 feet high, something like that. So the bed of my truck's at about 5'2" or 3", and it's about level with the bed of the truck. When you measure it, it turns out that I got a good 6 or 7 inches of lift. So why would you put a 6-inch lift on a tent trailer? Well, where I store it is up here so it doesn't get flooded when we flood irrigate. But when I backed it in, that trailer hitch, even without the extension on it, made a big old crater in the dirt. Ripped up the grass a little bit. But when I pulled forward, the jacks that are on the corners underneath, they ripped through this way, and it actually ripped the jack apart a little bit.